morning, and welcome to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, December 3rd. I'm Gary Stevens. Busy morning straight ahead. Our only open line segment for today will be after the 10 o'clock news block. Patty Vandenberg will join us in less than an hour with What's New Around Holland. We'll be joined by Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker, along with the Allegan County Emergency Management Director and Holland City Councilman Scott Corbin. And then we'll have Wellspring from Spectrum Health Zeeland Community Hospital. Dr. Michelle Price, a gastroenterologist, will talk about making sure the tummy is happy, especially during this time. So that'll be coming up on Wellspring. But our first Thursday of the month, the first segment, we spend time talking about the city of Holland with the city manager, Keith Van Beek. He joins us from his Zoom conversation from his offices in Holland City Hall. Keith, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Hey, it's always great to be here, Gary. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And if you have a question for Keith, he'll be able to happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. I prefaced the story from yesterday about yesterday's meeting saying it was basically a case of dealing with property, tax abatements, and some property deemed surplus to requirements, as the Brits would say. First, talk about those two abatements. One, and basically the two companies asking for abatements, familiar companies to those in the Holland area.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good meeting in that sense, and it's always a good meeting when you have abatements that are being asked for, Gary, because in this pandemic time, when a lot of kind of bad economic news is happening, this means that companies are expanding. So one, we had a tax abatement for Perigo Company. And up on Interchange Drive, for your listeners that don't know where that is that's M40 as you kind of head out of our town and head towards Hamilton. They're building a large distribution center up there. So we're setting a public hearing on December 16th to take a look at and consider an abatement for them. And then we also have one upcoming for Hudsonville Ice Cream. For our listeners that are probably traveling there, you see a really large building going on out there. And ice cream is good business, and we're happy to have that good business here in Holland. I don't think we're going to convince them to change their name to Holland Ice Cream, so we're fine with them keeping that Hudsonville Ice Cream name. But they're constructing a really big refrigeration unit out there to do more of their storage right there on site. So we're excited about considering both of those requests here upcoming and partnering with our business community.
There are some who always say, well, abatements are nice, but, these companies need to pay their fair share of taxes. And, they're subsidized. We're subsidizing them while some of the things that their tax money could be handling for, the average worker is going to have to foot the freight. Sometimes that's a misconception, isn't it?
Yeah, and the way I always like to describe that, Gary, thanks for queuing that up for me to describe. The way that I talk about that with council and public is I said, do you want 100% of nothing or do you want 50% of something? Because what happens, and especially historically, those 198s, those were taxes that were forgiven on what was called personal property. So it would be like as we as homeowners would have to pay taxes on our TVs and our beds and our couches and our dining room tables. And the business community pays taxes on those types of personal property in their businesses. And now what these 198s do in these two considerations that we're coming up on is that instead of paying 100% of taxes on new investment they're putting in, what happens is they pay 50% of those taxes for a period of years. And the city of Holland, like most municipalities across the state, considers that for a 12-year period of time. So we look at it as a good investment, a good partnership with businesses where they're able maybe to do more of an investment. And we'd like to do that, have them do that investment here in town and provide good jobs for our citizens.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this. For these companies, we'll use Perigo and Hudsonville Ice Cream as an example. If they want to get tax abatements from the state for their expansion projects, do they have to first get it locally, then they can get it from the state?
Correct. That's the process that's set up, is that they need to first get those approvals from the local unit of government that they're in, whether that be a city or a township, or sometimes those interesting instances of a village. And then that proceeds on to the state, where that also applies then to the state portion of a property tax bill.
Okay, that's our government lesson for today.
Hey, I love giving those lessons, Gary. Thank you.
The other topic about property was dealing with surplus property, surplus to requirements, and being able to sell that property again in that area of where Perigo's, near where Perigo's at Interchange Drive, M40 off of the M40 I-196 junction. I'm not certain. You talk about square foot acreage. It's kind of like, how big of a plot are we looking at that the city is looking to try to sell?
Yeah, we had a two-step process last night, right in that area. Assistant City Manager Matt Van Dyke, and Gary, the way he described it is, he said, "This is a plot of parcel that you couldn't build a lemonade stand on." So the listeners can think of this is just one of kind of those leftover really small parcels that really had probably no value, if you would, other than to the company that was interested in picking it up. And that's Teddy's Transport. They have one of those LLC type situations. So the name is not Teddy's Transport, but it's Teddy's Transport, where they approached the city about saying, hey, there's kind of a weird corner here, and we'd be interested in picking that up. And it's almost an insignificant amount of money, right? But it just rounds off the corner. It allows them to make use of, rolling that into their property. And then that becomes part of the property tax base going forward for years and years and years. So it just made sense that I think the unanimous vote by council last night indicated that this was just one of those things that just made sense to do.
Yeah, sort of a little property housekeeping by the city of Holland. And of course, Teddy's Transport, not only their cartage and logistics business, but of course their advocacy efforts to try to get foster kids, especially older foster kids, into forever homes. And maybe they could put up a sign saying, help us out a little bit with that in that particular spot. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't know. I don't want to give them too many ideas over there.
Well, I always like following their trucks because they always advertise the fantastic work that they do in the adoption efforts, it seems like, on their trucks. So it makes them stand out, and we're proud to be home to a business and that supports so many great causes like that. So it's a win-win.
395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek, he'll be happy to take it. And, first Thursday of the month, we would normally in December be talking about, wow, we had a great parade in downtown Holland earlier this week. We got Sinterklaas coming to town tomorrow night, Friday night. That goes by the boards, just like a lot of things this year, unfortunately, Keith.
Yeah, in fact, in my comments last night to council, I did have a little bit of conversation with council where even here at City Hall and our various services, we're starting to see, even in a different way, I think, what everyone is feeling, right? This just continues to seem to drag on, and it's just fraying everyone's nerves maybe a little bit more, Gary, and depression and all those things that are happening. And that's tough. But, we're still, I'm still very proud of our employees that are just continuing to provide service to the community. And we're absolutely, and I know I'm personally just just taking the perspective of saying, you know what, we're gonna find the good in everything right now, and we're gonna be positive. And there are positive things happening. We really continue as a downtown. We encourage people to do your takeout dining. My restaurant bill this year, Gary, is, I'm sure, bigger than it's ever been before, even though I hardly sat inside in any restaurants most of the year, because my family, we just made the commitment that we're going to, support our local businesses and our local restaurants. Downtown shopping is still something that's available to everyone. The farmers market, it's a little bit different, but we have the market open 9 to 1 on Wednesdays and Saturdays 9 to 1.
Let me correct you. Let me correct you real quick, because the Wednesday market is gone until May.
It's 9 to 1 on, it's so on Saturdays, only in December, 9 to 1. So thank you on that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I would have gotten, what are you doing now?
What's going on? You said something right. So, there's still stuff going on. And then maybe in a moment, we can talk about too, we had some fun last night. We talked about opening the dog park at Benwalty Park last night.
We'll talk about that in a moment or so, because I still want, there's still a couple of other things, normal events that would be normally going on in Holland that one probably has gone by the boards. Another, we got to start thinking about the holiday coffee with the mayor. That was a tradition that Al McGee and probably his predecessors had done, and then Kirk Dykstra and Nancy DeBoer had done, and now Nathan Box. But that's gone by the boards for this month. But the other thing that might still be up is the January meeting with constituents to get their thoughts about the budget process. Is still, iffy right now, but that still possibly could happen.
Yeah, so I opened that conversation with council. In fact, last night too, I said, we don't have any set plans, but I always think of the way I described it last night, Gary, is kicking off our budget. And our budget here in the city of Holland is a July 1 to a June 30 budget. But the kickoff for that budget process and building that budget starts in January. And staff already is going pretty hard in late January and February. We go strong. And we always kick off that process, Gary, with 3 things that all involve council. One, we have coffee with council, which is a way for citizens to, in a very, pointed way, citizens can always talk to council, right? But it's that one time a year in particular where they can talk to council. So that's kind of a step 1, I always call it. And step 2 is when staff have the ability to really have a discussion with council about what's been happening, and as they look forward, kind of what are the things they see on the horizon. And then council has their retreat, but we call it the advance here in the city of Holland instead of a retreat. So I just mentioned to council last night that, the probabilities are that that's going to have to look a little bit different this January. So I'm starting to brainstorm a little bit. We're certainly going to do elements of all of those 3 things, but I think that's going to look a little bit different this year. So stay tuned. We absolutely are still going to have the opportunity for the public to communicate with council. It may not be coffee, it may not be in person, but we're gonna have the opportunity for the public to share their views with council. And just a reminder, like I said, Gary, you can do that anytime. That public comment at cityofholland.com has really turned into kind of a really positive thing. I mean, again, a silver lining that comes out of the challenges we all face this year.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek.
Yes, I would like to comment that it's really thankful for the leaf pickup. That's a great thing for the city to do. And also, I noticed that the meeting was not on the local government channel last evening. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be possible to do. Thank you.
I appreciate the call. 395-1450. First of all, kudos for the Leafs, but also because it's a virtual meeting, things have to be a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, so two things. Thank you on the compliment on the leaves. That's kind of the royal we, Gary. I know the guys and ladies at the transportation department were thankful. We had one of those years where even in my own house, I was able to get all of the leaves from the trees out to the road before the transportation guys made their last pass. So that was fantastic because quite often it seems like I got leaves still coming down in December on top of snow. So that was awesome. So we're very thankful that we are able to provide that service here in the city. Then as it relates to our meetings, last night was the first time that we had a fully virtual meeting. And listeners might say, well, wow, I've heard other places that have done that all the way through the year. Well, our council, mayor and council had made a decision, a very intentional decision all the way through this year, that our council chambers are set up in such a way where we felt we could safely, and I think we did that, we safely still had our meetings in person. We were distanced. We had all different types of protocols in place. And we wanted to do that because we think the meetings, quite frankly, they work better when you're all there in person and you can look across the dais and see people, eye to eye. And the rules up until recently allowed us to do that. There were exemptions or exceptions for the city to hold those council meetings in person. With the most recent order, and it kind of went from 100 executive orders plus down to just an 8-page order, that same exemption wasn't available to us. So we moved to a Zoom meeting. And because of that, and the technicalities of all of that, we weren't able to do it live. But be assured, we recorded that meeting last night, and it will be on the government channels that people can watch. And then also, if you go and you want to see it live, you're able to see it live on YouTube.
All right, that sounds good. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek.
Curiosity, with a new, or not so new, but a Democratic mayor, and with all the things that have been going on in the country, is there any dialogue about reducing the fund for our policing in Holland? Thanks.
I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Keith?
Well, first, it's kind of that civics lesson again, Gary, that you talked about earlier. We have a nonpartisan set of elected officials. So our officials just run as themselves. So they don't run as Democrats and Republicans. So just, first of all, that's just a fact, right? But as to your discussion, I am not aware of any thought on our council to do anything with funding for our police department. In fact, what I hear very consistently, and I heard it again last night, and quite frankly, the mayor's or one of the strongest voices of that, of being very supportive of our men and women in the police department, because we're very proud of that group. We're proud of that group that, in the larger context of the national reasonable concerns about some actions there, we've had a very progressive department. Chief Messer talks about all the time the pursuit of excellence of being one of their core foundations. And that means trying to get out ahead of issues. So we're very proud of our department and the policies and procedures they have in place. And I think we have a very supportive mayor and council of that department. We always deal with different people that have different feelings about the police department for a whole set of reasons, but for the most part, we have a community that's very supportive, and I appreciate that.
One more call. Good morning. You're on the line with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek.
Good morning. I'm just wondering about the tax abatements. They give these different companies, and they promise they're going to give so many jobs. How do you know they come through with these jobs? Does somebody check these companies and make sure they're hiring the people they say they're going to hire?
Yes, actually they do. We do, and they have a requirement where annually they have to turn in documentation that talks about their hiring plans and what they've committed to over the years also. Honestly, one of the things that's changed now is probably when I first got into this business, maybe 20 years ago, most of those abatements were tied to a lot more new jobs. And now a lot of those abatements, like a warehousing facility, for example, maybe doesn't support the same number of jobs, but like a Perigo example is that warehouse here locally really supports some of their manufacturing that was able to stay in Allegan. So we really view that, I personally view that as oftentimes supporting the regional economy and not so much just the city of Holland economy. So we think it's part of and a wise investment to make sure that these businesses are able to stay in our area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Keith, you sort of teased it before we got a couple of phone calls. The dog park, it looks like that's going to become a reality very, very soon.
Yeah, and in fact, well, I was going to say I just did. The cat is out of the bag. I guess you're not supposed to introduce cats at dog parks, but you know what? If people want to go out and experience the dog park with their dog, they can already do it right now. The dog park is at Van Walte Park. It's off of 24th Street near Country Club Road. For longtime listeners, it's probably where you may have sled down the sledding hill at some point. It's off that same parking lot. And we're just really excited that we were able to put a dog park in there. We're still putting the final touches on restrooms and a dog wash station. So you can't use that yet, but you can peek at it and see that it's going to be really nice. And we've had a lot of people out there already enjoying that dog park, Gary.
It is, maybe the Christmas present from the city of Holland to its residents. That's a good way of putting it.
We were kind of excited too, and Mike Trithui, a frequent caller there on WHTC, we tried to surprise him last night, but he found, he's got a lot of sources all over the place. He found out about it before we could surprise him last night. Mike's been a pusher of this idea for a long, long time. So we were really excited about that, and council, especially in particular, it was Jay's idea. Council said, hey, let's do something really to specifically recognize Mike there. So if you go out there, you'll see actually a street sign in brown that designates one of the dog trails there as Trithui Trail. So we're pretty excited about that. We were gonna show a picture about that to Mike and surprise him last night, but there were sources that saw it already in the morning, and Mike was out there, I think, so we didn't catch him by surprise last night, but I think we were happy to be.
Yep, it is indeed a good thing. And no, I'm not. No, it didn't come from me. I'm not the guilty party on that. However, we are done with this particular segment with Holland City Manager Keith Van Beek. Keith, as always, thank you very much for your time. Wish you and your family a very happy and safe Christmas and New Year's holiday. And we'll do this all again after the first of the year.
Appreciate it, Gary. Thanks to you and all the good listeners out there.
Thank you very much. Keith Van Beek on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.